Welcome back, folks. I'm Frizz, and today I'd like to talk about the fighter in Pathfinder 2e. This isn't going to be a full guide to the class, as class guides take an incredibly long time for me to make, and I unfortunately just don't have that time in my life. But fighters are a really interesting class, as at first glance they don't seem to have that kind of special spark that most classes in 2e come with. Barbarians can rage to go stronger, rogues have great damage and even better skills, and rangers are simply incredible when it comes to fighting single targets. When compared to other martial classes, it seems like fighters simply just don't have enough that's really interesting to get people's attention. Their shtick is just being good with weapons. And how good can that even be? The answer is that it is very, very good. Fighters being more accurate gives them a higher hit rate, and, due to how Pathfinder 2e works, a higher critical hit rate. Fighters are simply the most consistent martial class in the game, and that isn't even up for debate. While that sounds good and all, the general consensus that I've seen online is that fighters are actually too good, and that they outshine their martial fellows all too often. I'd like to argue against that actually, as I feel like the fighter class has never actually been in a healthier state than it is in 2e. In 1e, fighters were not really all that interesting as they just got more feats, which, while that is very good, it's just not very interesting. See, a fighter's ultimate strength is how consistent they are. And due to that consistency, they don't actually get the insane moments of silliness that other classes are prone to. Yes, a fighter will get more crits than a similarly built magus, but every attack from a magus, or every spell strike rather, has a chance to do truly silly amounts of damage. That is going to be more likely to stick around in the player's memories, which doesn't necessarily mean that a magus is better, but it does mean that there are going to be times where a magus is more fun, and we're playing a game. Essentially what I'm trying to say is that fighters are very, very good. I'm not trying to downplay that. Fighters are very strong, but they do lack a lot of the insane wow factors that other classes have, which I'm guessing is actually by design. That isn't to say that fighters don't actually have any wow factors though, as fighters do have plenty of them. If you're looking for consistent damage output, you really can't do any better than just being a fighter. And if you're willing to spend some class feats, you can get some really interesting feats that can help you keep up with the insanity that other classes have, but you're never going to be as, silly as a monk that takes wall run and starts running up 60-foot cliffs. Because you're a fighter, you're not a monk. You're just very, very good at one particular thing, and that happens to be stabbing the bejesus out of people. In fact, I feel like a part of what makes the fighter such a well-designed class is actually how they don't need to take all of their class feats to get the really interesting parts of the class, because the best part about the fighter is their base chassis. Their increased weapon proficiency is just simply great. I feel like this makes them, out of every martial class, the best class when it comes to utilizing archetypes. Having such a good base chassis allows for them to take a bunch of cool, flavorful archetypes without having to sacrifice a huge drop in effectiveness for not taking incredibly, incredibly strong class feats. Also, I feel like if anyone has concerns about a fighter taking a multi-class dedication and then being better than that class just due to their attack bonus, I feel like those concerns are unfounded. Well, yes, a fighter who does take the monk dedication is going to be better than a monk at actually just punching people. Classes are so much more than just those basic abilities. Being a monk is far more than just punching someone. It's about mobility, action compression, stances, a lot of stuff that you simply can't just get from a multi-class dedication. So yes, a fighter who multi-classes into barbarian is going to hit more often than a pure barbarian, but they don't get all the other cool shit. And why are you going to play a game if you don't take the cool shit? Ultimately, if you're just looking to consistently hit people, then the fighter is probably the best option. However, outside of theory crafting, creating the quote-unquote optimal build isn't nearly as important as some people online will tell you. Now, this is not me trying to say, don't pick a fighter, they're boring. this is me saying, don't think that the fighter is the best class in the game hands down. It's much, much more complicated than that, and ultimately, yeah, it's just a very consistent damage dealer. Just because a fighter hits more often doesn't mean that a rogue sneak attacking someone 3 times in one round isn't going to take people's breath away due to the sheer stupidity in how much damage they deal. Fighters fulfill the fantasy of a relatively normal person, quotations around normal there, but it's a average person with incredible skills doing fantastic things. And they can also quickly turn into the most reliable way that a party has to deal damage to any particular threat. Basically, fighters are not the objectively best class that some people seem to perceive them as, and they're actually a ton of fun, and I really recommend trying them sometime. Thanks for watching. I've been wanting to talk about fighters for a little while now, actually. A lot of people, or at least a few very vocal people online, talk about them like they're either the second coming of Christ or the worst thing to happen to 2E's balance. So I've been wanting to get my 2 cents out of the way for a bit now. I'm a bit interested though, what are your guys' thoughts on them? I know that there are some people on some Discords I'm in and on the Pathfinder 2E subreddit that are very, very vocal about fighters, so I'm just curious, what are your guys' thoughts on them? I absolutely think that they are good, but nothing like so extraordinary that they break 2E's balance. Regardless of all of that though, until I see you next, live a wonderful life.